Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us for DCC Today. And we're going to start off with a photo of the day like we always do. This one was sent by Andy Davidson, and it was taken up at Hurricane Ridge. And when he took this shot, you can see that there still were a few snowfields in the foreground, which at this point, I imagine there are more than a few snowfields in the foreground as we are moving through fall. But Andy, thanks for sending that in. Announcements. Don't forget, Sunday morning, 9 o'clock, we'll be continuing our study in the book of Job. You can join us online or in person. And then this camera club that Shane is starting up is going to be meeting Monday night, this coming Monday night at 7 o'clock here at the church. So if you have an interest in photography or videography, whether or not you have equipment, you may be real experienced, you may be a novice, but we'd love to have you come out, be part of that, learn some skills, share some knowledge, have some good fellowship. So Monday night, 7 o'clock, give Shane a call or drop him an email if you'd like more information about that. And, I'm going to make an aside here because I'm just wondering if anyone notices something that has been very consistent this week. There is a consistent factor in every program this week. You know what it is? I am wearing the same shirt. And the reason is we pre-record these episodes and I was in kind of a rush and I didn't bother changing my shirt to give you the illusion that it's a different day. And so I'm just curious how many of you actually figured that out. Anyway, that's trivia. So moving on. Coming up November 20th through the 22nd, we have got that special weekend that I have dubbed Really Smart People Talking About God and Science. And Friday night, we'll be showing a movie called Against the Tide, featuring John Lennox, a Cambridge mathematician. This movie is, there are tickets you need to buy. We are simply serving as a host site for it. Adults are $11, kids are $9, and you can get tickets by going to our website, dcchurch.org, and clicking on the banner there for the movie Against the Tide. And then, that Saturday and Sunday, November 21st and 22nd, we have Dr. Brian Miller from the Discovery Institute, who is coming as our special guest. He'll be doing an event with our youth on Saturday evening at 6:30 here at the church. He'll be speaking in our worship service Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, and then doing an afternoon workshop at 1 o'clock here at the church. The workshop will also be viewable via Zoom. And we are sending out a registration form for that weekend. If you would please fill that out and send it back, that'd be so helpful, as it would let us know how many people we're planning for at each event. There's no charge for those events. The only thing there's a charge for is the Friday night movie, but we would like to know how many people are going to be coming, and I would encourage you to invite friends to come and hear Dr. Miller. Okay, devotional thought. This comes from Micah chapter 6, verse 8. I love this verse. He says, "He has told you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice, and to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God." Boy, it's good to spend some time just thinking about each one of those. And Micah says, this is what God requires. This is it. He wants us to be people who do justice. We care about what is right and fair, and we love our neighbor in those practical ways. And we love kindness. And then he says we walk humbly with our God. I just see over and over in Scripture the importance of humility. Humility with each other, humility before God. And Micah says, if you get a grasp of these three things, doing justice, loving kindness, and walking humbly with your God, he says you're really doing the things that the Lord requires of you. Well, it's Friday, and so we are going to go to another segment of Glenn Brown's life story. I hope you're enjoying these.
Donna and I had no idea where we would go and what we would do after I had retired from the Navy. I planned to stay in the pastorate, but just where that would be was known only to the Lord. Fortunately, we had a property that we had bought out in the Central Valley of California, a small almond farm, or almond as they say, and had 2 houses on it. One we had rented, one my folks had lived in for nearly 2 years, and now was empty. So we decided that we would just go out to the farm, and so we did. And after we had done some traveling, I got a call while we were at the farm from the Assembly of God assistant district superintendent. He wanted to see me, said it was very important. So I said, all right, and so he came out to Turlock, and we met at one of the restaurants there, and he said, there's this church that is without a pastor, and we've had several pastors there, none have stayed. In 8 years or so, they'd had 4 or 5 pastors, and we desperately want someone to go there and stay with the church and help build a work there. So he twisted my arm. We went and looked at the church. I'd already looked around, and we'd been up to Washington. I'd gone out. There was a church out at Port Townsend that was without a pastor, and the district superintendent here in the state of Washington had recommended to me a fine church, new parsonage. He said, it's great, it's up in eastern Washington, a farming community. They'll take great care of you. It's a marvelous opportunity for you to retire, chaplain. But it didn't sound like it was a great challenge, which I was still, just had turned 50, so I wasn't looking for a place to hang my hat without a great deal to do. So we had left Washington, was figuring we'd go back to the farm, and that's when I got the phone call. And so we met, and we agreed that we would look the church community over and give him a reply soon, and we did. And we decided that this was challenge enough and opportunity enough, and so we agreed to go to Pleasanton. They had a parsonage in town, and the former pastor was still in it, and we had to wait about 3 months before he moved out. But we had the farm, we commuted, and we stayed at Pleasanton for 14 years. And God gave us a good ministry there. We built a congregation, some great people, and still some marvelous friends that we retain touch with over the years. And again, we weren't sure what we were going to do, but we were in prayer, Donna and I, and this was right at the time the Soviet Union was collapsing. In fact, at the end of '91, it pretty much come apart, and there were stories of open doors and opportunities in areas that had been closed for decades. And so the Lord, in Donna's private prayer time, had laid Eastern Europe on her heart. And unbeknownst to me, that had happened, but the Lord was also speaking to me about Eastern Europe. And through a series of providential circumstances, God began to open doors. I had no idea where in Eastern Europe He might be directing us or what we would be doing there. But it so happened that there was a missionary ministering in Eastern Europe. He had ministered in several of the countries, and in 1992 he was ministering in Ukraine. And he had spoken to a crowd of townspeople, many of them who had never seen a Westerner. And there had been some military officers on the outskirts of the town, of the crowd from the town. And they had approached the missionary after the service that he had conducted. And they said, the general would like for you to come and demonstrate to our troops how military chaplains in the United States work with the soldiers. Well, the missionary said, I've never been in the military. I have no idea how chaplains operate, but I'll try to get a hold of someone that does. Well, to make a long story short, I was eventually contacted and went to Ukraine just to look over the situation with another retired Army chaplain whom had been the instrument God had used to get in touch with me, and because the missionary had known about him, he headed up a large organization of chaplains. So we went together and met with the general, and I gave him my background and told him I was retired, would be willing to come to Ukraine, and only needed some time to take care of some urgent business back in the United States, and I could return. And he said he would provide office and workspace and help us find housing if my wife and I returned. And so I took this as a call from God and departed after a week with the general. During that week, though, it was a momentous week. It was astounding. He opened up all of his bases to us. We were able to preach the gospel. One of the churches that furnished musicians, one of the Pentecostal Union churches, had a good group of musicians that traveled with us. We were able to distribute Bibles, had dialogue time with our interpreters, helping with questions from these soldiers and officers had been completely isolated from West. This was a super secret military complex with nuclear missiles and the whole range of destructive weaponry. And so we were being invited to minister there, and we knew that God was in it.
Thanks for joining us today. Hopefully we will see you either in person or online Sunday morning, and I'll be back here again Monday with another episode of DCC Today. Until then, God bless.